Hello everyone, welcome into this new video in which we will be talking about one of the most influential philosophers of the Enlightenment. That one being Charles Louis de Saint-Just, or better known as Montesquieu. He was a French philosopher and, as I said, was the most influential in the time of the Enlightenment. Born in 1689 in a small town near Bordeaux, Montesquieu was from a royal/noble family, with his father's side of the family being nobles for their loyal military service in France in the 16th century. While his mother's side of the family were rich, most of their income coming from wine production in La Brede. Unfortunately, disaster struck the young Montesquieu, as his mother died when he was just 7 in 1696, giving him the barony of La Brede. In 1700, the young baron was sent to school to the College de Juilly near Paris. He studied there for 5 years until leaving in 1705 to continue his studies as a lawyer at the University of Bordeaux, and then graduating in 1708. Afterwards moving to Paris for experience. His father, though, he soon died in 1713, which meant that he had to go back to Bordeaux. 2 years later, he married his wife, Jeanne d'Artigue, whom he had 3 children with. In 1716, his uncle died and left to his nephew his estates, alongside the title of Baron de Montesquieu, hence the name he has and popularly known as now. He was also given the office of Deputy President in the Parliament of Bordeaux. With all his titles and decades of successful works later, he died of high fever in 1755. It is known that he was also most likely fully blind by his death, as he struggled with eyesight in one eye that gradually went worse. As we know, Montesquieu was a lawyer, but withdrew from the practice of law to devote himself to studying and writing. Montesquieu is also famous for his articulation of the separation of powers, which is implemented in various constitutions throughout the world. His works would also often face censorship by the Church, but its rapid influence inside France grew with rapid translations of his works in various languages. This concludes section 1 of this video. Before we proceed to section 2, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask them now. Section 2. Montesquieu on the Spirit of the Laws. Montesquieu's most famous work is titled The Spirit of the Laws, and is a treatise on political theory first published anonymously by Montesquieu in 1748. A major theme of this book concerns political liberty, and the best means of preserving it. Montesquieu's political liberty is what we may call today as personal security, especially as it is provided through a system of dependable and moderate laws. Another major view is that liberty consists in collective self-government. For example, he believes that liberty and democracy are the same. To continue with this next theme, though, we must identify what Montesquieu believed in government. For example, what ideologies did he find? In this case, he found 3: monarchy, republic, and despotic. Monarchies are based on honor and people attaining higher statuses and ranks by impressing the leader. Republics are based on virtue and place the common good above individual interests, while despotism is based on fear with little regard for the rights of the people to prevent corruption in government. Now that we know about Montesquieu's governance, a third major view is that liberty consists of being able to do whatever we want without constraint. Although political liberty is not possible in despotic governments, it is possible but not guaranteed in republics. On the topic of political liberty, Montesquieu says that it requires 2 things to establish: the separation of powers of government, and the establishment of civil and criminal laws so as to ensure political safety. Montesquieu believed that understanding the various forms of government would help improve human life and reduce society's problems. Montesquieu believed that the main purpose of the government was to maintain law and order, political liberty, and the property of the individual. He also concluded that the best form of the government was one in which the legislative, executive, and judicial powers are kept separate from each other, and kept each other in check so that any branch from being too powerful. Although he does stress that liberty cannot be secure where there is no separation of powers, even in a republic. This is something we'll get more in depth to soon. This concludes the second section of the video. Please feel free to ask any questions or concerns that you may have. Section 3. Montesquieu and Doctrines. Montesquieu argues that the executive, legislative, and judicial functions of the government should be assigned to different bodies, so that attempts by one branch of government to infringe on political liberty might be restrained by the other branches. This is called the checks and balances doctrine. It ensures that each branch of the government has some level of authority on the other 2, while having all 3 work with each other. That way, no one branch gets too powerful. Montesquieu took the view from the Roman Republic to base checks and balances, saying that their power separated so no one could usurp the power It was also inspired by the British constitutional system where the powers were separated from the monarch. A doctrine of his is also called the separation of powers, and it is a political doctrine where the responsibilities of the government are divided into individual branches, each from exercising the core functions of another branch. It's intended to prevent the concentration of power in the hands of a person or group. A fallacy Montesquieu's elaboration is present in this doctrine as he inaccurately portrays the English government at the time. This marks the end of section 3. If you have any questions, please ask them and we will try to elaborate more on them.
Section 4. Montesquieu on Rights. Montesquieu pleaded in favor of constitutional system of government and separation of powers, the ending of slavery, the preservation of civil liberties in the law, and the idea that political institutions should reflect on the social and geographical aspects of each community. Montesquieu believed that everyone should have the right to a fair trial, the presumption of innocence, and the proportionality and severity of punishment. Montesquieu also argued in favor of abolishing slavery and for the freedom of thought, speech, and assembly. This is all I have for the short fourth section. Please ask questions if you have any. Section 5. Montesquieu on Science and Trade. Interestingly, Montesquieu had quite a sense for science as he developed some idea that he had himself. He believed that in this state of nature, individuals were so fearful that they avoided violence and war. He also believed that the timid human race is only associated and civilized due to the need for food. He also believed that the state of war among individuals led to human laws and government. Human nature is self-interested in his eyes. He was also very attracted to democracy, but worried that people will not come together for the common good, and thus democracy would fall. Controversially, Montesquieu thought that human qualities were determined by climate and nature of soil. A good example is how he thought that Asian people and their nations tended to favor despotism due to their intemperate, so tropical, climates. These beliefs linked up race and geography and were taken among proponents of scientific racism. Now on to trade. Montesquieu believed that trade was the best way for a society to become richer, and he definitely disagreed on building an empire and plundering other nations. He saw free commerce as self-sustaining and cheap, knowing that it didn't require vast military armament to secure. Although he was also nervous about monarchies and despots to interfere in a free economic system that worked better left to itself. This marks the end of the penultimate fifth section. If you have any questions, please ask them now. Section 6. Legacy of Montesquieu. Montesquieu has a huge notable legacy, as his writing inspired the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Constitution of our own United States. James Madison, also known as the father of the Constitution, was absolutely fascinated by his writings and was influenced by them in the Constitutional Convention of 1787, with being an integral part of the establishment of checks and balances here in America. Montesquieu is having a huge impact on the society that we live in today, would probably be a little less free had it not been for his influences. He's absolutely one of the greatest Enlightenment thinkers in the history of our planet for sure. Now this concludes the end of the video in its entirety. If you have any questions about this, we are free to take them now. Thank you for your time and attention. Have a great day.